No, not the anime. Dear God, not the anime. I've already given it more attention than it deserves here because in ruining the reputation of Chaos Head, it soured the conversation around both the original source material and the currently airing successor. Chaos Head is genuinely a mindfuck of a work, but it's not an easy recommendation. The sequel, Steins Gate, has a stronger cast, tighter aesthetic, and more solid writing. But as tense as its atmosphere can be, it just doesn't screw with me as much as Chaos Head does. And though I don't think the anime is worth anyone's time, the visual novel, even with its sometimes awkward fan translation, bugs, occasionally sloppy writing, and dumb pseudoscience, is still the ideal way to experience Chaos Head. Never, ever. Like many visual novels of the time, Chaos Head is largely cheap looking. Though it's a bit dated, there's just enough to lend to the grimy atmosphere. Shibuya is gripped in fascination at a string of bizarre murder cases, but the game is viewed through the eyes of Takumi, a shut-in who'd rather play games and jerk off to his waifu than go to school or have any kind of social life. His base is dingy, and the only sounds are Takumi's voice as he mutters to himself and the clicking and chirping of his computer, far away from any human contact. The soundtrack announces intrusions into his life, be they through visitors, startling news from online, or outside threats. A good portion of the game has you stuck staring at his screen as he watches the horrific new generation killings unfold through the lens of the vulgar at-channel subculture. Even though he lives in the same city the murders are taking place, he watches with revulsion at the fascination those more distant to the murders have. Trading rumors and in-jokes, digging up obscure information, merchandising references to words written in the blood of a victim or otherwise making light of the casualties. It harkens back to the era the game was released in when people still use the word epic. The save screen is even modeled after Takumi's desktop, blurring the line between his fictional computer and yours. Most of the game is on typical visual novel autopilot, but the player is given some control. Early in the game, you are asked about your preferences in regards to outfits, like whether or not you like girls in glasses, and these choices result in some small changes to the world. Most of the control is handled in the delusion triggers, but even the basic interface adds to the atmosphere. In one of my favorite scenes, Takumi is presented with a box to open from an undesired source. He has no desire to open it, but he recognizes a cheery ringtone coming from inside. When he finally does rip it open, he forces his eyes shut. Several lines of dialogue go as he slowly forces himself to open his eyes, but with you slowly advancing the text at the same rate, it puts you right into his headspace of sheer dread, the period before it's open giving you ample time to imagine the possibilities. Takumi's powerful imagination is one of the most important elements to his character, largely indicated through the delusion triggers. Being a lonely otaku virgin, Takumi spends a lot of time imagining things, which is represented through the gameplay with you choosing what light he views things in. Red triggers are often born from morbid pessimism, often resulting in someone being harmed or killed, usually him. But the green triggers are where Chaos Head's roots in Arrow games shines through as he interacts with the female cast, imagining all kinds of lewd scenarios that wouldn't be out of place in those games, to the point that Takumi even names the ones he's reminded of. But they're merely brief excursions from reality. Takumi's way too awkward for any of that. One example is with the clumsy Kozue who slips down some stairs at school and despite bleeding, none of the other students go to help her. Takumi meets eyes with her and moves right along. Even in his mind alone, he's hesitant to act. His response to his own delusions of his sister advancing on him is a steadfast, "Hell no." But though the player is interacting, they are mere delusions, accomplishing nothing more but slight alterations to scenes through Takumi's state of mind, his core personality remaining. Yet something else draws comparisons to the typical protagonists of the schlocky Arrow game. Their characters formed by choices that make no sense when put together except to push them toward the girl of your choice. They often lack any identity. But while Takumi has a fully defined personality, his identity is less certain. That's because the Takumi we see over the course of the game is a delusory existence. The delusions have little to no effect over things early on. They are often accompanied by rapid cuts away and a warped fisheye lens driving home how unreal they are. Not all of the triggers do this, some of them merely change Takumi's outlook, such as deciding whether, in a park with meandering police officers, Takumi runs away out of paranoia, tries to act natural, or plays innocent until the oddities present become too much for him. The outcome is ultimately the same, but in making it so that the delusion triggers don't always cause delusions gives an air of uncertainty to each one. That uncertainty comes to a head through Rimi. Her first appearance after the vague prologue is in one of the new gen murders, which Takumi witnesses after the fact, embroiling him in the plot. As he spends the next chapter and a half terrified of being found by the demon girl, in chapter 3 she suddenly appears before him after another delusion trigger. The cutaway is not followed by the typical fisheye lens, making it unclear as to the nature of the scene. Just as the visual language is twisted, everything built up is called into question as Rimi claims she has been friends with Takumi since the previous school year, a fact confirmed by the only person Takumi talks with at school. From this point on, as Takumi goes deeper into the world of reality-altering psychics, what's real and what isn't becomes harder to define, the interface no longer trustworthy. Scenes can now go off the rails at a whim as the lines between reality and delusion stop being meaningful, allowing for shocking subversions of expectation. Because if there's one thing Chaos Head nails, it's atmosphere. As Takumi questions his own existence, looking into his screen at his video game character, he wonders about those eyes he's felt watching him since he was a child. Sol no me, dare no me. He wonders if maybe he himself is a video game character, and at his lowest begs the player to start again and make someone better. That phrase is one he kept in his head for the better part of his life. Yet as the new gen murders unfold, it becomes part of the public conscience. It's injected into casual conversation at random, crowds chant it, t-shirts emblazoned with the phrase are sold, all done with an amusement about it. The public treats it like a joke, a meme. But from Takumi's perspective, it's an intrusion into the privacy that is his mind, and a symbol of how unsettling the situation is for him. He was more than satisfied with his private otaku lifestyle, but with all these cute girls barging into his life, not even a lewd delusion or two can keep him from finding out how they're often as fucked in the head as he is. Yua is introduced as being fairly perfect, helping Takumi to his base after he's hurt, and not balking from his tastes in the least. But that perfection was a lie she used to get close to him in hopes of drilling him for information about the murders. She sees a sad, pathetic boy, but in pursuing her objectives, she initially has no qualms about abusing his loneliness for her gain. IDIOCY spouts off cultist-sounding beliefs without a hint of irony. Kozue regards undesirables as worthless cockroaches without regard for their lives. Chaos Head does not paint a nice picture of youth or society. Shibuya is described as a city of trendy youth, but its inhabitants are rarely kind. The adults seem to have their heads on mostly straight, but the streets are described as having a high ratio of delinquents. When IDIOCY is on the rooftop, the crowd of students below eggs her on to jump. Maybe it's Takumi only seeing the worst in things, but even though the main cast isn't much better, it's not really portrayed as a wholly bad thing. The destruction of Shibuya in the climax, resulting in the loss of an estimated 30,000 lives, is deemed as tragic, and though the main characters have gone through such mentally damaging torture and hardships, they find the will to press on in the form of their D-swords, alien-looking weapons that represent their status as reality-warping gigalomaniacs. Whether that will to press on derives from vengeance, compassion, or love, no matter how messed up the character has been and remains, it's part of who they have been and who they are. They're all broken, but that's fine. Maybe we're all a bit broken. It's who they are, a fact that Takumi must come to terms with as he struggles with his own non-identity. It's certainly not a new concept in fiction, but it's handled in a darkly interesting way. Through blending reality and delusion in the first-person perspective of a visual novel, Chaos Head puts you deep into the mindset of its main character, allowing you to feel that grimy atmosphere just as deeply. It's a blend of both personal and existential horror that works for me in ways I haven't quite gotten out of anything else yet. Never, ever